What's up, guys? It's Scoops and Rags here.
Today we'll be reviewing top 10 reasons not to move to Australia. Let's get started.
Maybe you'll find out in my top 10 reasons not to move to Australia. Number 10.
Is this
It
guy
gets
on?
hot. Contrary to popular belief, most of Australia isn't all perfect year-round temperatures. Well, unless you're in Sydney or Perth, but even those get some bad days each year. And although a few cities on the southern coast and Tasmania actually get hit by really cold fronts coming up from Antarctica, the real issue in most of Australia is the heat.
Bro, it's not even that hot, to be honest.
90% of Australians
Yeah.
live within
If
50
anything, America
kilometers
could be
of the
hotter than
coast.
Australia.
The heat makes
Exactly.
the rest of the country basically
Yeah, I get in the center of
unlivable,
Australia, but who goes
especially
in
in
the
the
center?
outback where temperatures
all the
can
time.
reach 50 degrees Celsius. That's 122 Fahrenheit. Heck, it gets
Not
so
really
hot in the
true.
desert here that the opal miners back in the day ended up building an underground settlement called Cooper Pedy to protect them from the heat. It's pretty cool, actually. And even though the cooling effects of the ocean make the coastal areas more livable, most of the cities will still get days above 40 degrees Celsius during the summer.
Yeah,
And
what?
some of the most
One day a
beautiful
year?
beaches
Oh,
in the
not
world
every day.
with tons
Yeah.
of
Come on,
sundays to
bro.
enjoy. And
Seriously.
the fact that you're pretty darn close to the equator,
It's more
and
around
it
20.
isn't hard to see why 2/3 of Australians are diagnosed with skin cancer by the age
God.
of 70. Oh, and I'd be remiss to not talk about that other thing the heat and sun cause as well. Bushfires. You've probably
Oh,
already
you don't
heard
have
about the
bushfires in
wildfires
America?
that have
Come on,
decimated
California all
46
the
million
time, bro.
acres and killed
Yeah, what about the huge
451
fires out in
people this past
California
year
like
alone.
2 years ago?
Sadly, Number 9. It's isolated. You might have wondered why so many
What is this
Australians
guy
left
on?
their beautiful
don't know
homeland.
what
It
he's on.
seems a lot like paradise to most Americans. But the reality
It
is
is.
that many Aussies feel trapped, lonely, and
What the
isolated
hell?
from the rest of the world.
Bro,
You may
20
think
over
that's
25
silly,
million
since you can
people
just
live in
hop on
Australia.
a
It's not
plane and fly to a
lonely.
nearby country like Indonesia or Singapore. It actually isn't so simple. Most Australians live in the south.
Guy probably hasn't even gone to Australia.
So a
Exactly.
flight to anywhere other than New Zealand means crossing the giant continent of
big
Australia
book.
and
8
then
hours on an
some,
aeroplane.
or just the entire Pacific Ocean. Basically, even those close countries end up being anywhere from a 6 to 10 hour flight away. It's at least a 14-hour flight if you're going to the US, and you should expect to spend over 24 hours in airplanes and airports if you want to visit anywhere in Europe. And before you comment, so what if other countries are far away? Australia's huge. Just explore that.
Exactly.
Well, the thing about that is that Australia isn't just isolated from other countries. The cities here are actually really isolated from each other.
Exactly,
The land
there's
down
lots to
under
explore.
Is the third least densely
Far out.
populated country in the world, with just 3 people per square kilometer, and it only has 5 real cities with metro populations over 1 million residents. So, as I'm sure you can guess, the population centers are
wrong
very
with that?
spread out, and
Exactly.
most of Australia is
Not
very
everyone likes to be
remote.
living
For
right next to
example,
it.
the 2 closest big cities would be Sydney and Melbourne, but they're still an 8.5-hour drive apart. Melbourne to Brisbane's an 18-hour drive, Adelaide to Darwin's a 31-hour drive, and Sydney to Perth is
Your
a
point being?
41-hour non-stop
Exactly.
trek with pretty much nothing in between. Number 8. Time zones.
Oh my
Speaking
gosh.
of isolation,
Time
Australia isn't
zones,
just
seriously.
physically isolated from other countries. You're also going to have trouble keeping in touch with your family or friends back home unless they live somewhere in Asia. Australia is an entire Pacific Ocean away from the US and 2 continents length away from Europe, so the time zones are practically exact opposites. Now, Australia has 3 main time zones, but for the sake of just showing how different the times are, when it's 7 a.m. in Sydney,
time zones
it's
aren't
10
gonna make a
p.m. in
difference,
London,
to
and
be
when it's
honest.
6 a.m. in Perth, it'd be 6
If you're in
If you want
living
to
in a
call your
different
family, you
country.
can call them
this is
anytime
just
you
more
want.
of an
Exactly.
inconvenience than a huge deal, but it can get pretty tedious trying to schedule a call with your international family and friends. Number 7. The internet sucks. If you finally do
My
manage to get
internet's
a hold of
fine.
your family and friends, time zones might not be the only thing that get in the way. Because even if you schedule that Zoom call perfectly, the internet might just randomly cut out or start
Oh.
lagging, and by the time
Internet
it
is
sticks, it's
completely
probably the other
fine. You can
person's
stream
bedtime.
4K
Sure, the
videos
Exactly.
United
anytime you
States
want.
isn't anywhere near the best when it comes to internet speeds compared to most developed countries, but it's light speed compared to Australia, which is only ranked as the 43rd best country for internet. internet. And no, I don't just mean that on average it has relatively slow download and upload speeds. I mean the most expensive plans still disconnect or lag frequently,
Oh my
and a lot of the
gosh.
plans actually have data caps. Who does that anymore? A 200 gigabyte a month plan in Brisbane with download speeds only up to 12 megabits per second will cost you $65 a month. And don't even think about going over, or you'll have to pay an outrageous fee, and your internet speeds will slow down to 256 kilobytes per second. What developed nation has any internet speeds under 1 megabit per second? That's just ridiculous. Number 6. Everything wants to kill you.
That
If
is
the
bull.
frustratingly
Nah.
slow internet
Nah.
speeds are enough to make you want to
100%
go
not.
on a digital
If
cruise
anything,
and take a camping trip
snakes
out of
and
the
spiders are
wilderness,
afraid.
well,
Exactly.
don't,
Us.
because literally everything here is trying to kill you.
No, it's not.
Yeah, Australia's home to
Bro,
box
you
gotta
jellyfish,
defend
these
yourself.
animals
tons
slapping
of
them or
poisonous
what?
snakes and
Of course they're
spiders,
gonna
blue-ringed
bite you.
octopuses, stingrays, sharks, and the largest saltwater crocodiles in the world.
Whoa.
Wait, did you think I was done? No, I'm just getting started. Because kangaroos, dingoes, cassowaries, emus, cone shells, and drop bears can
Drop
all
bears?
pose
What?
serious threats.
Koalas?
Okay, well, maybe not
Right.
the drop bears since they don't actually exist, but the rest of those animals have all taken human lives.
do exist.
Australia just isn't a place where you can spontaneously go for a hike or swim without being very cautious of your
You
surroundings
can go out.
at all times.
Go for a
Snakes
swim
are
easy.
scared
A
of
man
you.
being snatched out of
It's
his
a
boat in
public
a river
pool.
by a giant crocodile while he was just
Far
going fishing
out.
with his family. Although don't get too worried because
also,
you're actually
crocodiles
more
aren't down
likely to
the
die by
southern
falling
end of
off a horse
Australia.
from one of the
They're only
deadly
up the
critters
northern.
here. Just be careful and respect the animals whose homes you're visiting. Except for kangaroos. While you might think they're so cute and cuddly, they can be vicious, and many Australians actually see them as pests. The only reason the country hasn't declared war on them yet is because the kangaroos outnumber Australians 2-1, and the Aussies don't want a repeat of what happened in the Great Emu War of 1932. Spoiler alert, the emus won. Number 5. Bad drivers. While many Aussies try to blame the kangaroo
if anything,
for their lack
India
of
has
road
worse
sense
drivers.
as the reason for so
Exactly.
many
Have you seen
car
the Indians
accidents,
drive?
only
I've watched these compilations where they just drive like
7,992 kangaroo
nutcases.
collisions actually occurred in 2019, which was less than 5% of the total automobile accidents in Australia. So maybe the drivers should start taking a little more responsibility. Now, of course, every town, city, state, and country is going to have its fair share of bad drivers, but the drivers in Australia are really some of the worst in the world.
Bro, I bet you
and
haven't
I'm
even
not just
been
saying
here.
this as some American trying to diss Australia,
You
because
are.
I love Australia,
Oh,
and even
yeah.
people from
Yeah.
Australia will admit that the
You sound
drivers
like it.
here are terrible.
They aren't
In
that
fact,
bad.
Aussies actually upload more videos of illegal and bad road behavior than any other country. Number
Is it
4.
proof?
It's expensive. Aside from the aforementioned incredibly expensive internet, pretty much everything else here is expensive too. Because while Australia is big, it's still an isolated island, so a lot of things have to be shipped over long distances to get here. Of course, the cost of living varies based on location, with it generally being cheaper the farther you get from the coast and major cities, but Australia as a whole is pretty pricey. Granted, it is balanced out by the decent job pay, since Australia actually has the highest after-tax minimum wage of any country, and a top 10 average income at
Is it
around
proof? You gonna show us
$64,000
it?
US dollars per person per year. But then again, this also just creates an expensive cycle, since the high minimum wage means high production costs, which means it's cheaper to import goods, but imported goods are expensive, and well, that's just economics. And even though most of the wages are livable, they're not necessarily enough to buy a home, especially in Sydney or Melbourne, where the median home values are 1.15 million and 855,000 Australian dollars respectively. That's nearly 820,000 US dollars for your average home in Sydney. Number 3. Places close early. To add
Bro, people
onto
wanna
the fact
sleep, that's
that
why they
things
closed
are
early.
expensive here, it might be difficult to even buy said things if you're working normal hours, since most shops, stores, and restaurants usually close by the time the sun sets during the week. And if they
Sunset?
operate at all on the weekend,
What?
they're
Bro,
probably going to have
I
even
get
more
retail,
limited
like,
hours.
closes,
This
but
one
not
isn't a
bloody food
huge
shops or
deal
anything
once
like
you're used
that.
to it and plan accordingly, but it can be a big
They have
culture
11s
shock if you're
24/7.
coming from the States where there's an abundance of
Even
24-hour
Macca's is.
businesses. Now, to be fair, a few places do actually stay open later if you're in a big city like Sydney, Brisbane, or Melbourne, but it's hard to buy things past 5 or 6 p.m. pretty much anywhere else.
Yeah, right.
Number
People
2,
have other things to
poor
do in their
mental
life,
health
that's why.
services. Despite
Oh
their
my God.
vivacious exterior, Australians usually keep their feelings to themselves. It's just not normal to talk about personal problems here, and the mental health of the nation is suffering for it. Now, there are free care options
Oh
available
my
for
God.
at-risk. The immigration process is very difficult. While visiting Australia is as easy as having a valid passport,
Because
filling
we
in an
want a safe
online
country with no
application, and paying a
friggin'
small
boom
fee,
booms.
becoming a permanent resident is incredibly difficult for
Oh,
U.S.
may I
citizens.
touch on the note where
Now,
he
for
says
young
everything's trying to
Americans
kill you?
eager to explore
What about
the
the
world,
guys
Australia
running around
does
with
offer a
AKs everywhere
program
in
known as
America?
the Working Holiday
Yeah, where are the
Visa,
terrorists
which
in
allows you to
Australia?
live in the
Yeah.
country for a year
Only
or
been like
two
one
in
terrorist
exchange for
attack
paid work.
We don't need
But
attack
if
in
you
like
want to move
every
here
10 years.
permanently,
Yeah, we don't need
there
security
are
guards
a
in our
lot of
schools, big
requirements,
giant
such as a
fences.
confirmation of funds, a skill set assessment, proficiency in English, a health exam, no criminal
Who made
record,
guns
and
legal
being under the
in
age of
America?
45. For the most part, you either have to have a lot of money saved up and plan to start a business in Australia, or offer a highly desired
We don't
skill
want
that
randos in
no
Australia,
available
that's why.
Australian worker has. So,
Yeah,
while it's
that's why
definitely
we-
easier to move here
When was the
than to
last time
certain
you
countries
heard
in Europe,
about a terrorist
it's still
attack
very
in
difficult for your
Australia?
average American to immigrate here
America has the
permanently,
biggest
and
terrorist
that's
attacks in
probably
the
why
world.
only 1 to 4,000 Americans do it each year. I'm sure more would if they could. But Australia is a beautiful country.
Thanks everybody for watching. I hope you like and subscribe, and we'll both see you in the next one.